Okay, thanks, John. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, April 18th, River Falls Common Council organizational meeting. First thing we'll do is stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Christie, can I have a roll call, please?
Bierstead.
Here.
Bjork.
Here.
Carow. Downing.
Here.
Morset.
Here.
Mueller. Here. Odeen.
Here.
Okay, next we have the swearing-in ceremony to the newly elected officials. First, we'll start, each one will come up to Amy up at the podium and stand there. We'll start with Diane at large.
Because it's for different offices. Okay, raise your right hand. You repeat after me. I do have it right here in case you need to read it. I, Diane Odeen.
I, Diane Odeen,
Having been elected to the office of Alderperson at Large,
having been elected to the office of Alderperson at Large,
do swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States
do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially
and will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of your ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Clap.
Kind of like getting married.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Okay, Sean, you'd like to go down next. Sean's from District 1.
Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Sean K. Downing,
I, Sean K. Downing,
having been elected to the office of Alderperson District 1,
having been elected to the office of Alderperson District 1,
do swear
do swear
that you will that you will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office
said office
to the best of your ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'd have District 2, Nick Carow, but Nick is not here tonight, and he has already previously taken his.
Yes, he
Oh,
has
yep.
completed his oath.
Yep, perfect, thank you. So next up would be District 3 with Alyssa.
Please raise your right hand. I, Alyssa Miller,
I, Alyssa Miller,
having been elected to the office of Alderperson District 3,
having been elected to the office of Alderperson District 3,
do swear
do swear
that you will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially
discharge
the duties of said office
the duties of said office
to the best of your ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank
Alyssa.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Next we'll have election of Common Council officers by the council. I will take nominations for council president.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Scott Morissette.
Second.
Okay, any other nominations? Got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
That makes me feel good.
Next I'll take nominations for the comptroller.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate that we appoint Diane Odeen to be the comptroller.
Second.
Any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then Diane, if you'd like to appoint your deputy comptroller?
Yes, if he's willing to serve, I'd like to appoint Jeff Bjork.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. Next, move on to, I'm appointing Diane as a parliamentarian, since she is a parliamentarian, and she's done a great job.
I
Next,
don't call you on much.
well, that's true. That's true. She makes it very easy on me. I can screw up all I want. I'm not supposed to tell them that. Okay, next move on to, I will take a motion for planning commission for one of the council members to sit on planning commission.
I nominate Diane Odeen.
Second.
Any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, next move on to my appointments. Historic Preservation Commission, we're gonna put Alyssa on there. Library Board will be Jeff Bjork. Park and Rec will be Scott Morissette. Design Review Committee will be Sean Downing. Utility Advisory Board will be Nick Carow. Housing Authority will be Todd Bierstead. And River Falls Creates Public Art will be Sean Downing. And I'll take a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we accept your appointments.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next is resolution designating public depositories for public monies held by the city of River Falls. I'll take a motion on that.
I so move.
Second.
First and second, any questions or?
I have to
Yep.
abstain. My employer is one of the so appointed designated public depositories.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next, resolution designating the Journal as the official newspaper. I'll take a motion on this.
I make a motion, we appoint the Journal as the official newspaper.
Second.
Questions?
I have
Yep.
to step away from the table on
Okay.
that as I'm employed by the Journal.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next, you all read the report on the organizational meetings. I don't know if anybody had any questions on it for Scott? Otherwise, it's more for information than anything. If not, we'll go to review the bylaws.
I did have
Oh,
a question
yep,
on there.
Go ahead.
On the organizational update, I noticed that it didn't have Kendra listed on there, that she resigned and that her last day will be next week, is it? The planner?
Yes.
There wasn't on the list though, was it?
I don't know. Let me look and see if we have that, because that would have probably been received on or about the time that we published the list. So that'll be a vacancy that we have available.
Okay.
Next, we'll go to review of bylaws. And Scott, were you gonna give us any review on this, or just if the staff has any questions for you?
Yeah, I guess the council is aware that this was coming back to the org meeting. We talked about the bylaws being part of this. We did a little, I shouldn't say we, the city clerk did some research. Changes to the bylaws are supposed to be at your May meeting. So this is an opportunity for you to discuss. It's an agendized item, so you can discuss changes to what's been drafted so that we could draft different things, or you can just accept the draft the way it is and you still can amend it at the May meeting. So this is really the council's prerogative to set their kind of rules of operation.
Okay.
We weren't sure, I'm not sure that we reached a consensus at your workshop on the number of council members required to put something on the agenda. It seemed like there was a discussion about 2 or 3. So we drafted it as 2. The reason that we left it with the language we did, where the city administrators to determine the format, is we want to make sure that however we do it, we're in compliance with the open meetings law. So if the council decides that they want 3, then I'll have to take into consideration, walking quorum and things that will be required for you to get 3 of you together to do something. So it has to be more of a straight request rather than the council people kind of polling each other. So that's the reason I left it the way it is. If you did 2, I'm not sure that I would have to specify the format, because you probably would be okay with email, phone, call, there'd be a lot of opportunities to do that. So that's the justification for me still being involved with your process of the agenda. So you also have the ability to just strike that part out and set your own specific process. So if the council wanted a certain form or email only or in writing, or you could do that. But I was trying to give you some flexibility.
I'm in favor, and I think I spoke at the workshop of 3. I think if it doesn't make it to the agenda and it is that important, I think it should take three of us to get there. If we look at the latest topic that we want to add, I think we had 3 already that were interested in having it put up. So I don't think 3 is too much to ask. I do understand that it might cause a little bit of a process dilemma, but I think it should be 3. If it's that important, it should take 3.
I had also talked about having 3 at that meeting, and I think part of it is we have to figure out how that process would look, but I think 3 makes a lot of sense.
Just for a process piece, and maybe the attorney can ask about this, is, so I sent that request to Scott, the council, and the mayor. If I were to do, and Nick and I had talked about it, and I was clear that only Nick and I had talked about it so that we didn't get into the issues of a walking quorum and things like that. So if we send the request to all those folks, it is not violating open meeting laws if someone just replies to that email to say, I also agree to support this making the agenda. Right? That I just want to make sure.
Yeah, so our attorney is available online, I guess. Just
Here. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. So in that situation, it gets close to that line where you start discussing an item via email with the entire council. I'm personally much more comfortable if it's, you can go and say, hey, I'd like to have this on, but avoid, to the extent you can, copying in the entire council, because then it's really easy to get into a situation where you get a lot of reply alls and there starts getting some inadvertent discussion when the entire council is copied in. But if there's instructions to only reply to the city administrator if you're interested in this agenda topic, that would likely be just fine.
Okay.
It's reasonable.
That sounds workable.
Yeah, I'll just make a statement here since we wandered down this reply all thing. I do not like the reply alls. I think there's two issues with reply all. There's the actual walking quorum violation of open meeting laws, and there's the perceived issue of deals being done behind doors, neither of which we need. And I don't think it's a good practice for us to reply to all. As the city attorney said, it could inadvertently start a conversation, and before you know it, we're down the rabbit hole. I'd urge my fellow council members not to reply all. Reply to the mayor, reply to the city administrator, or whoever you want to reply to. But I don't think the use of reply all is a great idea.
Yeah, and just to be clear about any specific emails that are received today, I didn't, and I don't think the city attorney would believe there's any violation, because it was instructions more to staff, even though it was reply all. It's basically, council didn't really, none of you in the latest round of emails revealed how you may vote. So there wasn't an opportunity to poll. You weren't polling each other, so to speak. But as the attorney said, it's easy to go from something that's clearly available to you. Like if we send out something and say, can you all meet at Glen Park Pavilion if we do a workshop on July 7th? You all replying back to everyone saying, yes, I'm available is unlikely to break the public meetings law, because it's more an administrative duty or ministerial type task. But it can become the perception that, oh, the council is doing a lot of reply alls to each other, and so there's some secret code, you know, kind of like, you know, giving your signs when you're playing euchre or something. So there's some implied message behind the message. So it is good practice to try to avoid the reply all, except for on things, well, there's really no exception. If you can avoid the reply all, that's good. But it's not necessarily going to get you in trouble with the open meetings law just because you reply all and it happens to include all the council. So just.
And just to clarify,
Your point is a good one.
I don't think anybody violated an open meeting laws. I don't think that happened here. I just don't think it's a good practice, and I think there's really no instance where we need to reply all. I think we can use Scott as the conduit, and if he feels he has to communicate some sort of straw poll about if we can attend a meeting, he can do it. That's why we hire him.
Also, you could make a more formal process for us to have, I think, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, I've got one other question regarding a different bylaw.
Yep.
Okay, so question for Mr. Simpson. It talks about 24 hours. I know in our meeting we had before, there were other council members, including myself, who expressed interest in potentially 2 to 4 hours notifying if we wanted to use our technology for people who might not be able to make it, whether it's an emergency or potentially work-related or something that's unplanned. There are things that come up in people's lives that they have no control over. You know, during COVID, we had stuff that happened like you'd find out that someone was exposed to something. Well, you don't want them going to the meeting if they've got something. Among other different things, we are a group of working people. So flexibility with the technology might be an important, vital part of the future for our city council that we should consider. And if it's not reasonable by the staff, I'd like to hear why it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's reasonable for you to set whatever policy you'd like. So what we heard at the workshop is that you wanted to establish essentially an expectation for remote attendance. And so it reads 24 hours. If you give us notice 24 hours, we will facilitate your ability to participate. We still are going to try if you give us less than 24 hours, but staff wants to be clear about what your expectations are. So if you want to set it as 2-hour notice, that just means we will have people maybe literally waiting to make sure that if somebody contacts us in that 2-hour window before the council meeting, that we're ready to kind of spring to action. So, so it's reasonable. I don't know other cities' rules on this because we didn't research that level of time windows. We just thought 24 hours is helpful. We know we can find staff and resources within 24 hours to facilitate somebody's attendance. I would also point out the council talked about its self, and then you expand. We believe, staff believes that you expanded the interest in guaranteeing that right to your boards and committees. We didn't, as staff, draft it to include members of the public. So that's another thing the council could do if you wanted to guarantee for members of the public the right to attend remotely. You'd have to amend this language because this language, it's understood that staff is going to do what it can to help facilitate remote attendance. We do that as a regular thing. If somebody calls us and says, can I remotely attend? You know, because you've seen this in meetings, but there's nothing in this draft that guarantees a member of the public the right to participate in a public hearing or just do a public comment remotely. If that's important to you, then I would suggest you think about doing that right in the bylaws. And in that, if that's the case, then I would recommend that you stick to 24 hours for the public because we have to, typically with public, we have to do testing. Whereas council members, and board and commissioners, we kind of have your cell phones and other things, and we know what kind of technology you have, and so it's a little bit easier to kind of snap you on. But if you want meaningful public input, I would suggest that we want staff to kind of check and make sure it works.
Could we add, oh, I'm sorry, Diane, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering if there was, it seemed, I haven't heard otherwise. It seems to me that anyone from the public who has wanted to attend or participate remotely has been able to do so. Are there people who've wanted to who haven't been able to? I mean, it seems to me what we're doing now works.
Our intent is to accommodate all requests.
Right.
I don't know that we have.
Okay.
So I don't have an inventory that says, here's the 14 people that have asked us, and all 14.
Well, I do think
have.
it's reasonable to have like a deadline.
It's
for-
possible
for
that
the public.
somebody has asked us to attend remotely and we haven't accommodated them. I don't think that's our intent. And then we also have some accommodation related to impairments or accessibility. And I think, and I can't actually speak to that. The city clerk might be able to, but we have time. We have some notice requirements on that too. You know, if you need a American Sign Language interpreter and you show up at 6:30, we're not likely to be able to accommodate that. I think in our notice we say, it doesn't mean if somebody gave us less than what's in the notice that we still wouldn't try to facilitate. It just means it's harder for us to guarantee that ability.
Yeah, I think that's, I just scratched out something here, and maybe what we do, I don't know, Mr. Downey, if you're willing to kind of entertain this idea, but add another sentence to it that says staff will make every effort to accommodate requests for remote access made less than 24 hours in advance. So 24 hours is the deadline. If it's 23 and a half hours, they're gonna try their darndest to get it done. If it's 2 hours, they're gonna try to get it done. If it's 1 hour, they're gonna try, but it may not happen. I think the spirit, that's what I'm hearing,
Flexibility, yeah.
is the flexibility of, hey, 24 hours is the deadline, but doesn't mean that it's no after 24 hours. It means we gotta try and see what we can come up with.
Well, right, and and I think that, you know, if we know we're not going to be able to attend in person, you know, I think it's only fair to give the staff notice about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
At least 24 hours.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a kind of our, in part, I see this as, you know, our accountability too, that we will tell you.
Well-
And then emergencies happen. Those are different.
Yeah.
Well, and we have no control about the equipment on the other end either.
Right.
You know, so we'll do our best.
I've dealt with that.
So can I just clarify with the council that you're still talking about council and boards and committees?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Did we come to an agreement on
I
2 or
was
3?
just gonna
Oh,
bring that
okay.
up again. Yep. So what does the council think? 2, or 3, they okay with 3?
I think
Would you
3 is
rather-
good.
Do we have a consensus with 3? And this will come back again, right? Like you said, you'll write it up next time that, okay, at the organization meeting, you said 3, that's what'll come back to us in May. Cause I'm assuming you want us to,
Yes, I think your straw poll might have indicated 3. And so we can draft it that way and you can go back to 2 or 1. I mean, the council has the ability, there isn't anything in statutory language that would guide us.
okay.
The council has the ability to set
2 other
set
choices.
reasonable rules for agenda.
Okay. So I think 3 and then the 24 hours with Scott's amendment about anything less than 24, we'll do everything we possibly can to make sure.
I think you should say all reasonable efforts.
Yeah,
not
really, yeah.
Yeah, all
Re-
reasonable
yeah.
efforts or something like that.
Something along those lines.
And we've got the recording, so we'll try to,
Yeah.
we can try to draft based on your conversation. The other thing that we codified in here that I think is basically codifying our operating procedure is this whole idea about if the council has changes to meeting minutes. We likely would think about adopting this for boards and commissions also, although their process is pretty informal at this point, so I don't think the clerk gets a lot of requests from board and commission members to change minutes, although I think some of the recording secretaries might. And this just says the council's agreed to this process for the council minutes, that if any of you have amendments, obviously you can always do those on the floor. You don't need any permission, you don't need any advance notice. But if you want to give us the ability to correct something you think is just a record correction, or we recorded it differently than by giving us notice a day ahead, allows the clerk to review the recordings and see what they think. And if they agree, they can make a modification. If they don't necessarily agree, then they can let you know, we don't agree. You can still try to convince the council that you want the minutes amended. You just don't have the unlimited right to amend your remarks like congressmen do, right? So they
That's
can
not
say
what I
something
meant to
totally
say.
different, and then they can amend
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
can change the record.
Question for you,
Here's the
Mr.
clerk's
Simpson.
job to try to record reasonably what they heard.
I have one question for you, Mr. Simpson. The city typically releases the packet on Thursday. Is it possible the city could release minutes a day before to kind of adjust for that loss of the one day? Or would it be too much of a crunch for the city to put it out on Wednesday?
I think it would be too much for me to say it's not possible to do minutes only on Wednesday if that's what if the council wanted the chance to review the minutes a day earlier than the packet. If you said the packet, we could do that too, but it would change work processes quite a bit more. Minutes are typically done well in advance of Thursday. So that's something I guess we'd like to hear from the council, and so you can think about it and let us know.
Well, I certainly don't think we need the packet earlier than Thursday. That gives, 5 days to look at it. And I appreciate having that time.
So anything else on bylaws?
Yep, I got two others.
And I have one.
Go ahead, Mr. Bjork.
Mine is just on the communications, the public communications are within there, letters to the editor. It says council members are discouraged from submitting letters to the editor relating to city issues except for stating or clarifying city policies. And I agree with that, but I wonder if we need to expand this because of in today's world with social media, that we need to maybe make sure that we discourage, and I don't think anybody here on this council is doing anything like this, but I wonder if we need to make sure that we include that and discourage those comments being put out on social media as well from a council member.
I think that's a good point. I think that, we all still have First Amendment rights and can basically say whatever we want to say.
Mhm.
Although Fox News may feel differently after today.
Or CNN.
I think discourage might just be a good reminder for us that
Yeah, I would.
that we're representatives of the city and and we should be respectful and cautious about what we say because
Yep.
we're public officials.
Yep. And
Yeah, I
peop-
support that.
when people read what we say or whatever kind of social media it is, they
Right.
assume we're speaking for the city.
Yeah.
Because we are elected officials.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful what we say and do. So yeah, I like that's,
We have a responsibility to think.
yeah.
Don't
So,
hit
yeah,
enter right
put
away.
something in there about social media also.
Right, I think something needs to be added in there, so.
Yeah, and I also think now's the time to add it when there hasn't been a problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We will do our best to give you some thoughtful research on that, but I won't pretend that I've spent a lot of time thinking about that because, as you've raised correctly, you each have ability to speak for yourself, and there's some expectation or encouragement that you will speak in a competitive representative democracy, that you all have positions. This is intended to kind of guide your behavior so that if you're going to speak, you let people know that you may not be speaking on behalf of the council. You haven't made a decision. And so I think finding some language on social media probably makes sense, but admittedly, we have not researched that on your behalf. So whether we'll have something that you think is adequate to discuss at the next meeting, we'll do our best. But it also might be an interesting thing for us to just think about as we do our communications plan too, and how that fits with the the city's official communication plan, and then the council's role within that and speaking. So I don't want to discourage, I don't want to discourage you from having your voice. This pertained primarily as you kind of guiding yourself about, make sure that people know that, like the mayor has said, they assume when one of you speaks that that's all of you speaking, for the most part. Some people don't.
Okay.
Is that acceptable for us to just research something?
Yep.
And then I would
Research it.
encourage you, if you have specific thoughts, or if you have a simple solution to this too, I'm willing to take that too. So maybe there's just a modification of the letters to editor portion. We don't want to overthink it either, but if you guys give it some thought, if the council gives us some thought and lets us know, that'd be helpful. But we'll get researching in haste.
Okay. All right. I've got a change I got a change that I think has to be made. Section F5B should be struck from there. That section is election of council members to, A is plan commission and B is utility, used to be commission and it's been changed to advisory board. It is not an elected position anymore. It should be part of 6, which is a generic listing of all boards and everything else. So F5B should be struck.
Thank you. I believe you're correct. We'll verify that that's the
Yeah.
case.
Okay. And then the only other suggested change that I would make is under, what is this? 6C, where it talks about the following joint meetings shall be held, Plan Commission Council, Utility Commission Council, and School Board. I think it might be helpful to put in there as needed, but at least annually. We could, it just says there shall be joint meetings, and I suppose that's broad enough that you could have it any time you need, but I think the at least annually is important to add. I think we maybe
I like that.
wandered off on the school board. Thank you. I think we wandered off on the school board and maybe skipped a year or two. I think it's important to have those meetings, so I'd like to add that if there's thought about it.
So can I ask from the council on those? I think the school board has been at least every other year. I'm not sure if we've
Was it
done
every other
every year. And then I'm reading this also related to I believe we've done the utility advisory board one mostly every year. Is there any thoughts about the joint meeting of the plan commission for capital improvement and master plan? Do you want to do, or the master plan is essentially the comp plan? Do you want to compel yourselves to do an annual meeting with the plan commission jointly?
I think that's productive.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, and are you open to changing the removing the CIP part and talking about, maybe we'll modify it to comp plan and development issues or something like that?
Sure.
Does that include the strategic plan, Scott?
It does not, as it's written. I probably wouldn't draft it that way unless the council felt strongly that it should do that.
Why don't you pull back some language that just makes it generic enough that we can talk about whatever we want to. But
Whatever's important at the time.
and as far as the school district goes, if that is every other year,
I think we've been able to do it just about every year. At one point, our goal, the superintendent and I, the goal is to at least do it every 2 years.
okay.
I think we've gotten a rhythm. We might have missed one during the COVID period, but we did one last year and the year before, right? 22 and 21. I think that's about right. So I'm fine. Again, this is just you telling us what we're compelled to do. We're fine having the direction. You're telling yourself what you're going to do, and then staff are supposed to help you make sure that you fulfill your own commitments to yourself.
If I might, I actually think that maybe it might be more flexible to keep the bylaws as it is and then like have a policy that we want to do it this council wants to do it every year. Rather than like enshrine it in the bylaws, that, you know, maybe sometime in the future, there's, you know, maybe we don't need to meet with the utility board, you know, or, you know, just give a little flexibility. So just my 2 cents.
Okay. I mean, I could go either way, but I think my thought is to formalize it, but maybe that's overthinking it too.
If you said attempt to do what you're saying, or that
Yeah.
doesn't hold enough power.
With a goal of.
With a goal of annually, that's fine.
Yeah.
Goal of
Something like
annual,
that.
or as needed, yeah.
Gives us some
Annually or as
flexibility.
needed, then it
Yeah.
gives some flexibility, and we're not going, oh, you know, we're not always violating the bylaws. If
I just
we
think
wanna be
some
flexible.
reference to frequency is
Yes.
important.
Okay.
So there,
Take that.
try that.
Just a question. Do we have a meeting with the university like we do
No,
with the
we
school
never
board?
have.
Have we?
Not formally.
Scott meets with them,
Okay.
the chancellor.
Okay.
We have had the chancellor do presentations.
Presentations, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I have about quarterly meetings, sometimes more frequently with the chancellor. So we have an opportunity to kind of have a formalized discussion. The chancellor's cabinet has presented to the exec team and vice versa. It's been a while since we did that, actually. But the council certainly, the challenge there is there isn't, it's the Board of Regents really is your peer. So you have the chancellor's peer, and I'm the chancellor's peer somewhat. So I'm meeting with the chancellor, but I don't. So there's a possibility for that. I'm not sure what the group is that meets with you. Whereas with the school board, the plan commission, the UAB, we kind of know these are the two groups we're going to bring together.
And I would also suggest, oh, I'm sorry.
That makes sense.
Okay. I would also suggest, I know we've never done it before, and we're over 2 counties, but I think it would be really interesting and potentially very useful to meet with the county supervisors that represent parts of River Falls. Just so they've got faces, so we're not like that city they never have to think about, or only when they get elected. You know, of course, I'm a little biased to my full confession. My husband is on the Pierce County Board of Supervisors, but some of their concerns, especially with like legislative priorities, overlap with ours. So I just think it'd be useful to maybe consider that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And is the council okay with that not being in the bylaws, but just being part of our legislative strategy?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We could even meet with the town of Troy board.
God, I'm gonna be busy that night, I think.
They're all new people. Come on.
We could ask one of our officers to
Yeah.
attend you.
Okay, does anybody else have anything on the bylaws? Scott, do you have any, you should have plenty of info from us for whatever you need.
Yeah, I think so. Again, just to reiterate, these are your bylaws. So when we're giving you advice, it's just for us to help you implement what you would like to implement for yourselves. So this is purely a council directed document. So if you think of something between now and then, it didn't have to be in the conversation of the workshop or here. If your peers are wanting to amend it, you have the full kind of authority to do so.
I think it's good to point out that the last time this has been amended, the bylaws, it looked like it was what, 2011, Scott? I was saying something like that in there.
Yeah, there may have been some tiny things updated, but we couldn't find a significant modification.
Sounds like we found a lot of good ones today.
Okay, so we got a couple meeting dates. Board of Review will meet on May 23rd. We'll meet to adjourn and set their Board of Review for August 3rd from 4 to 6.
Move to adjourn.
Wait a minute. I just want to make sure that we put on the agenda for next time our discussion about the impact fee, the environmental impact fee dues that we said we were going to talk about in April for the fees and also for the terms and conditions of the loan that we put out to 1.5. So I just want to make sure that that's known and that'll be on the agenda.
I don't think it's on next week's agenda. I think it's be the first one in May, right?
Yeah, right now, unless council directs otherwise, I think it's coming back in the first meeting in May. The reason for that is I misspoke. We had historically done the fee schedule at the org meeting or thereabouts. This year with the 2-year budget preparation, the new finance director helped us get the fee schedule approved with the budget. So I was thinking all the fees were coming to this meeting tonight or abouts. And so then that's what I indicated to Councilmember Bjork. We believe the council has some consensus to modify the environmental fee, so we're working on getting prepared to make that change in our billing software. At the same time, we're getting the streetlight utility fee ready to go, and so we were thinking we would try to bring those together at a council meeting in haste ahead of the implementation of the streetlight fee. And we're not necessarily waiting for the streetlight fee to do a discussion on the environmental fee, but that's about how it's laying out right now. So my apologies to the council, because we did talk about trying to do that fee. When we talked about the environmental fee in January or February,
Somewhere around there.
we discussed bringing it back for you to talk about the fee, the fund, and the financing. So the 3 Fs, which we did into your consensus at that. So we expect the council will give us some feedback about what you want to do with those 3 items: the fee itself, the fund itself, and then the financing that it's extended to other funds.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
So the dates for the board review, the May 23rd one to adjourn, and then the August 3rd one for the regular board review. Everybody's okay with that? Okay.
Now I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
So boring.